Hello and welcome to the Startup Operator podcast. I'm Roshan Karyappa. For those of us of a particular generation, the likes of Yahoo, Rediff, and of course Sulekha were our first window to the internet. Satya Prabhakar started Sulekha as a blog around the year 2000. It then became one of the early listings sites in 2007 and then has transformed into its current avatar of a marketplace for services ranging from home improvement to education and more. In this podcast, Satya spoke about his 14-year journey, how he built a sustainable business, how he sold to small business entrepreneurs, and how the startup ecosystem has evolved over the last 2 decades. This was a nostalgia trip for me. I really loved talking to Satya as I was transported back to simpler times. I hope you like it. Hi, Satya. Welcome to the Startup Operator podcast. Thank you so much for making the time.
Thank you, Roshan. Thanks for your time and your interest. Thanks a lot.
So, as I mentioned, it's a privilege to be talking to you. Sulekha was founded 21 years back, I think in 2000. And that was the time of the dot-com bubble. We hear legend and folk stories about it. But for those of us who didn't really experience that firsthand, could you talk to us about how things were at that time?
Actually, I just want to correct it in the sense we started in India really in 2007. Right. Before that, it was just
I think there was a blog.
Just a hobby kind of a thing.
Okay.
Yeah, that was just a few years before that. But that was not really a business per se, but really the Sulekha as an enterprise, Sulekha as a company, has started its operations in India as a focus in 2007. And our journey has started, of course, it's almost 12, 13 years since the time we really started to push it forward.
Can I?
And it's been an...
So can I just rephrase that question, sir, then in that case?
Sure.
Yeah, let me just rephrase that question then. So Sulekha was founded in 2007, and in that time, plenty of things have changed, right? You've gone from being a listing site to what is a marketplace in the current avatar. Could you talk to us about this journey?
Absolutely. So we started in India, in 2007 after we raised our first round of capital, and we started by looking at organizing the small to medium business information, which was lacking at the time, and we found it as an opportunity, and also as a classifieds platform for consumers and businesses to buy and sell with each other. So it was more of a transactional platform where people could look for services and products. So what we realized is that it's difficult to monetize the general purpose use product classifieds. And so we sought to focus on services based listings, because one thing we found is that there was a lot of appetite on part of the small to medium business service people, businessmen, to be able to look for and find customers, right? Because they don't have capital, they don't have enough work, and they don't have a brand. So so it is all hard for somebody new to trust them and to do business with them. So they needed the affirmation and the credibility that comes from being listed on a trusted platform such as Sulekha. So that is how we have started, by being a business listing service, information lookup. And around 2016 or 17, we decided that just being a lookup is not value enough for consumers. And also that value is being fulfilled quite well by the likes of Google. And important that we move up the value chain by providing the consumers not just information about the businesses, but also to find verified service providers who are matched to their specific requirement, right?
Right.
So we will become a matchmaking service than an information lookup service. Sulekha has grown from there, and we are very happy with the way we are serving. Pre-COVID, we had 40, 50,000 live customers. We were paid customers. We were selling per quarter. So it's both fulfilling because we're helping small to medium businesses grow, and it's also fulfilling because we're helping consumers get their job done. So that is how the arc of evolution of Sulekha has progressed from the beginning to where we are right now.
Right. I want to ask you about what it's like working with these SMBs, right? Because 2007 is also not sufficiently early in the consumer internet sort of wave in India, right? I mean, it was around the time I think Flipkart, Ola started around that time, I think, right? So, what were some of the challenges like in talking to some of these SMBs? How did you get them to understand what your value was, and if you could talk to us about some of your experiences then.
Sure. So when we say small to medium business, we're talking about entrepreneurs. We're not talking about the service economy, gig workers, so-called, for example, Uber drivers. We don't cater to those people, to those segments of SMEs, so to speak. But we are more in entrepreneurs who provide higher value services where there is a lot of engagement on part of consumers, who they pick and how much they pay, what kind of service they want. Like, for example, event organizers, right? Caterers, interior decorators, movers and packers, and business consultants, lawyers, architects, right? Overseas education counselors. So these are all things where you spend a substantial amount of money and you care about who the service provider is. The quality matters, the matchmaking matters. So that's what we focused on. But you are absolutely correct. There is such a thing as being early to the market, right? And at some level, we were too early to the market because it took us a lot of effort to first convince the small to medium businesses that they should invest their money in a digital platform because they are suspicious by nature, right? So it took some amount of convincing on the part that it actually is the only what do you call meaningful and I as a platform, we as a platform are able to present you for people who are looking for what you are offering, and we are matchmaking to the kind of service they're looking for. And the third thing is that you are only paying us for when we deliver value to you, right? Oftentimes, if you put on a road on a highway, you put a hoarding. Well, you don't know how many people will see, how many will call, and it's most of our advertising is wasted because most people don't care about it. But here, you're only being presented, and you're presented as a verified service provider, as a qualified service provider, and you're only paying when I do that. So it is accountable, it is affordable, it is actionable, right? And it is targeted to what we want. So that we are able to explain, and that people saw the value in that.
This episode is brought to you by Mulya. You want to move fast? Sure. But without breaking things? Now that's a hard ask. The thing is, once you have some base of users and customers, you just cannot afford to risk quality. So how do the likes of Cred, Swiggy and CureFit, some of India's fastest growing startups, ship at lightning pace and delight their users and customers? Simple, they're working with Mulya as a strategic quality partner. Mulya is India's most talented and passionate community of testers. They've helped prevent thousands of bugs and regression issues. So, as a CTO or a product owner, if you want to reduce tech debt, especially while you scale, do check out Mulya.com. I've interviewed Mulya's founder and CEO Pradeep on the podcast earlier, and we spoke about how startups can improve quality while scaling and things to that effect. You should definitely check it out. I'll link to it in the description below. Now back to your regular programming. Right. Yeah, internet advertising, through sites like Sulekha definitely changed the game for entrepreneurs as such, right? And that section or that cohort of users itself have come a long way, right? I mean, today we are talking about something called a gig economy, right? And we're talking about,
yes,
especially in post-COVID, it's become extremely relevant where people are offering services to the world right now, right? So what has your experience been like in 2020? How do you see the business sort of change in that time?
Yeah. So if you take the example or an analogy of a roller coaster, So the March 2020 was here at the height of this roller coaster, and it's just a 90-degree fall down from March to April, where this just the world froze, right? And I think the service sector SMEs were the ones who were most severely affected by this, because essentially the state or the state government or the central government told you can't work, you can't make money, you can't go anywhere, you stay at home. So we have found that really all of them suddenly lost their income, right? I mean, they have no money coming in because they cannot work. And if they can't make money, they can't pay us money to advertise. They have no value for advertising. But even if there's a consumer who is looking for this service and I connect him to that consumer, he cannot go and provide the service, right? Events froze. There were no weddings, right? Coaching centers closed, right? Home improvement closed. For 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, they were just completely shackled for the SME sector, and because of that, we are also very affected quite badly. I have never seen such a fall in business since the beginning of our company. So, but we are sort of building the company back up, and we hope that by October we'll be back to where we were in the pre-COVID levels.
So, not many people right now remember that there were scores of distinct businesses that started around the same time, right, and kind of died, right? It's a very competitive space, very difficult to build a sustainable business. In that, I mean, you have stood the test of time, right? 2007 to now, it's been 14 years, right? Not many people can count the businesses that, have have been around for that time, right? What do you attribute your longevity to?
Uh, the honestly, and I don't mean it I don't mean it in a facetious manner, which is that I think it is important to start every day as if it is the first day of your business, right? You are inventing yourself, you are trying to build yourself, because and a lot of entrepreneurs will say this. A lot of people who, not just entrepreneurs, people who are who are managing businesses will tell you that it is extremely actually difficult job, only because there are simultaneously there are problems, there are opportunities, and there are so many things to manage your time, and not just time, your energy and your psychic focus has to be always be on and 100%, and that is tough. That's very difficult, right? So one has to train oneself, and I think you got to change yourself on the inside for you to change the reality on the outside. And the only way to do that is to constantly look for opportunities to reinvent yourself, to rediscover yourself. Even then, you could fail, right? Even if you do everything right, even if you work very hard, you're passionate, you're energetic, you're sincere, you're dedicated, right? In everything you do, and yet you cannot, you may fail because I believe only 50% is you and 50% is luck, right? You also have to be in the right place, and luck comes in many forms, right? You may have a very perfect interviewing system and you hire somebody senior, right? And a year later that hire works out to be terrible, right? You lost money and you lost time,
Yeah.
and you lost progress, right? And sometimes in that interviewing process of the key people that we recruit, you must get lucky, right? Because you cannot perfectly understand anyone. And the same thing is that sometimes you come across investors just by accident. You're sitting next to the person on a plane, right? You meet somebody at a cocktail party somewhere, and bingo, you have an investor, right? So there is half of it which is luck, half of it which is yourself. And the luck part, you cannot have to accept life and accept things as they turn out. The other 50%, where it is in your control, that you just have to give your best. Every
Right.
day, 8 days a week, right?
Right.
I think that's the important part, and you have to also you have to learn, and you have to motivate. You have to motivate yourself before you motivate others, and it's a continuous struggle. But the most important thing is to start with a fresh mind, the mind that of a beginner
Hmm.
every morning.
Right.
That to me is the secret to longevity.
Yeah, fantastic points. I think that day zero mentality is like a critical thing. I've heard this
Yeah,
from many founders and entrepreneurs,
yeah,
and also developing that sort of a second tier
right,
leadership who can, take your business further,
yeah,
right, is equally important. Um, you
right,
mentioned luck and serendipity quite many times in the answer,
exactly.
and
Yeah.
I wanted to see if you could remember like one or two instances where you got like plain lucky, right? Like you sat next to someone on the flight, or you bumped into someone, or something of that sort. Can you think of a couple of instances like that?
Yeah, I'll tell you one instance. For example, we have raised one round of capital from Mitsui out of Tokyo, right? It's Mitsui out of Tokyo. So it just so happened that I went and met the head of the president of Yahoo India at the time, right? And I was just talking to him because I have known him. I have gotten to know him. I was in Bangalore, and my flight got rescheduled to later. I had some time, so I called him and I just went by to say hi to him, right? And explain what Sulekha does. It's not that I have known him for a long time. I known him maybe for a couple of months, right? I met him somewhere. So I said, okay, yeah. So I went and met him. It just so happened the folks from Mitsui went and met him very next day and told him, listen, we are looking for internet companies of this kind of so. Do you know anybody that we should be looking at? And because I met him just the evening before, he said, of course, you should go and meet Sulekha, which looks like an interesting company. And bingo, they became honest, right?
Interesting.
So it's things like that, and those serendipity you cannot manufacture
Hmm.
serendipity.
Hmm.
It, by definition, it is random,
Right. Right.
right? So yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I said.
So another facet of consumer internet businesses, is the fact that it's it's difficult to build a sustainable business, because I think in the beginning you chase growth and engagement, but really to move from being a product that people like, or a platform that people like, to building a sustainable company that generates revenue and profits is quite a stretch, right? But you have managed it successfully with Sulekha. Any words of advice on how you should do that, and how you went about doing this at Sulekha?
It's a very simple question for you to ask, and a very difficult one to answer because there is no one answer really, Roshan. Somebody asks, what is the strategy for success, right? Success is the strategy sometimes, right? In the sense that a priori, you don't know what will actually work, right? There are certain principles of sound business management that one can employ, right? Recruiting the right folks, having a understanding your market, the target consumer group, market opportunity, what is a product differentiation. These are the classic things that all of us learn in either in business school or by reading books or otherwise. But which specific strategy works in a specific context that is evolving with time, right? Because the world is not standing still. The world is moving, adapting. And for us, what works is is very difficult to tell a priori. Oftentimes, you folks especially, you look at out of 10 people who start the race, we know that only two guys end up winning, correct? Two guys end up winning.
Yeah.
So, and you try to analyze those two people and identify what is it that they've done differently that led to success, right? But the problem is what they did differently coincided with a set of circumstances, certain set of market conditions, certain set of consumer evolution, certain amount of like, for example, COVID, it dealt a death blow, a severe body blow to many companies, but it was a godsend for some companies, especially those who are providing services online,
Right.
right? It was just, you can't imagine any better gift than that
Yeah.
for them to
No,
be able to do that.
it's absolutely
So I
right.
think it is there is no one.
Yeah. Sorry.
But see, the way I would say, Roshan, is that success is an and condition. You got to get multiple things right, whereas failure is an or condition, right? Where anything can fail, right? So,
Right.
but I don't think any company today can say I have succeeded or I have arrived because uh, things are changing every day, right? Things can go wrong, can go right in many ways.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, it's a lot of times it's the right person, right place, right time, right? So, and
exactly.
uh,
Yeah, yeah,
there's precious little you can do to engineer this a lot of the times. But there are certain
mm.
principles, like certain management or business principles that one can follow, right?
Yes,
To be
yeah,
on the virtuous path in some sense, right? So, uh,
yes.
from your perspective, what are those two or three principles that you follow and have followed over the last 14 years that has kept you in good state?
Yeah, I think the first one is you have to have, the first point I made earlier, which is that the mind of a beginner, and to start with a fresh mind every day and say that how best can be the opportunity. That's one very important thing. And that the mind of a beginner also includes the ability to continuously learn new things, right? That's important as for all of us, not just by only for entrepreneurs, for everybody. It is important. I think that's one thing, to start with a fresh mind and to have the continuous hunger to learn. The second one is, I think, the most uh, communist resource in the world is your 24 hours in a day, right? In the sense, it doesn't matter who you are, you get only 24 hours, and everybody gets only 24 hours, right?
Right.
You can kick and scream, all you want. You're not getting 1 second more than the next guy, whether you are the president of the United States or you're Roshan or you're Satya. It's of no consequence. Everybody gets the ration of 24 hours, and I think a lot of times uh, how things turn out depends purely on how we deploy our time. The only inelastic flexible resource that is inflexible resource that is there, I think, to knowing where your time is going and to be able to allocate the time and to have a large chunks of disposable time to focus on
Right.
important but not urgent things is really, that's the second one. The third one is I just feel that uh, you must have capacity for hard work, capacity for focus and hard work, right?
Right.
To be able to be at it, continuously be at it, all day, all night. I think those are the three things that will not assure success, that will not guarantee triumph, but will improve the odds.
Right. Right.
And it's at the end of the day, like health and wealth, success also is a game of probability, right? You can
Absolutely.
only improve your odds. You can never be sure.
Right. So,
Yeah.
Sulekha is a two-sided marketplace, right? So you have a bunch of people looking for services, and then you have service providers, of course, providing that service. Uh, One thing that
Right.
strikes me is that there are so many users and user personas, right? If you look at it, because there might be someone who's looking for an electrician and they may behave differently, and then you have another person who's probably looking at distance education and they may have a different sort of a behavior, right? So how do you architect such a platform? How do you take into account, different
Yeah,
users needs, and fulfilling them in the most seamless fashion?
sure. So what we do is that we first, because we have been in this business for a while, we understand in every city category, need, attribute, and location. Uh, how do you characterize a service? How do you convert a service requirement into a set of actually parameters, right? We ask, suppose if you are looking for an event organizer, right? I will ask you, sir, is it a corporate event or is it a home event, right? What kind of an event is this? How many people do you expect? Is it what kind of food you want to serve? What kind of cuisine? So this is trying to understand what are the salient aspects of a particular requirement, particular need, and then trying to capture that need in the set of parameter values. We do the same thing on the service provider side also. In the sense, we ask them, what do you do? What kind of services do you offer? And then when the consumer comes with the request, we try to use our algorithms, sometimes which are fuzzy AI algorithms, to understand that for a particular service requirement, right, who are the best qualified and matched service providers. So that is how we try to adapt the platform to every distinct consumer need. And over time, we also get to understand their affordability, their whether man, woman, demographic, and based on the location, how affluent they can be, and try to match accordingly. So this is a constantly adapting matchmaking algorithm that we have built, and it works very well.
Right. Now, these days people talk about the Bharat user, right? And the thing is that Sulekha has always catered to this class of user, right? Whether it's investing in vernacular language content, or the fact that, your onboarding is a particular way, and so on, right? So, what is your advice on building for Bharat?
Yeah, I think while he has said Sulekha as a platform caters to Bharat, we mostly are in the tier one, tier two cities, right? We have not gone to the smaller, really small towns only because they really don't need a matchmaking platform to find a event organizer. It's a small town. You know everybody. So in tier one, tier two, but we have launched. We are actually alpha testing in online education training platform. For that, I think it will definitely cater to the Bharat in terms of even remote areas. As long as they have internet access, they can get it. For those people, Roshan, the key things are these. One is their comfort in the vernacular local language. That's one. The second one is, I think there is a lot more allure that okay, something that they can watch. The third one is because of the constraints of capacity of internet capacity and other things. The third one is this content has to be packed in shorter frames of time, shorter durations. These are the ways. Local language, video, short are the ones that seem to find tremendous traction with the Bharat users as compared to urban population.
Right. So, Sulekha's journey, in a sense, has mirrored the growth of the Indian startup ecosystem itself, right? Around the time you started, you had, of course, Flipkart, Ola, and all of those companies start. And today we're, talking on a day when, there have been 4 unicorns that have been announced in a span of 3 days in the same week, right? How
Yes.
have you seen this ecosystem evolve?
I'll tell you, the thing is, as I have watched this whole ecosystem, um, local was hot in 2007. Then there was a time in 2014, 15, it was all classifieds and information marketplaces. Then it became about fintech, edtech, and travel tech, all these things. So I think as investors see opportunities unfold, they want to be the first to stake the ground in those oceans of opportunity. I think the thing keeps changing over time in terms of what is considered to be attractive. Even is the same with investing in the stock market also. There are certain times technology stocks are hot. Sometimes stocks that are in the pharmaceutical biotechnology. So it's a sectoral shift that happen. But overall, we believe that in the long run, uh, platforms that connect people, platforms that enable transactions, platform that arbitrage on the information inefficiency and asymmetry will do well, is our view, and that's how we are building the company.
Right. So what plans for Sulekha as we move forward? I mean, you've just had a tough year, COVID, of course. What plans from to 2021 and beyond?
I think we are still at, I think, as an economy and as an ecosystem, the digital ecosystem. I think, except for a few companies that are focused mostly on digital transactions, I think the rest of the companies that require some kind of physical thing, I think the risk continues to exist through the end of 22. I think the first important thing is to ensure that both the country and the industry, the sector, get through the year, because right now the cases are going up, offices are getting closed, and again lockdowns will happen like it has happened in some cities. So I think the first priority is to get through the crisis of COVID crisis, then is to continue to build the thing up. That's what we are focused on. Last year was not an easy one, so we are focused on building the company as best we can, right, as quickly as we can once we get through this COVID crisis. And then we're also investing in certain new initiatives soon, but it's more in helping SMEs with their digital presence of Sulekha. And also this whole education is a very important thing. Training is a very important thing. So we're looking at how Sulekha can participate in that. So getting the core business back to where it was, then investing in these new ventures is really our focus for the next years.
Right, fantastic. So this has been a fascinating chat, Satya. In closing, before we
Thank
end,
you. Thank you, Roshan. Thank you very much.
yeah, before we end, any parting words of wisdom to all of the founders, operators who are listening to the podcast?
It's a question that's often asked. Before I started this journey, I went to one conference, and there was a very famous investor, and somebody asked him question, what is the advice you have for entrepreneurs? And take a long nap and a cold shower and wait for the feeling to go away. Because as you will know, it's very tough. It's very uh, exacting. It is very difficult, and it of course asks a lot of things. If things work out well, you'll also turn out to be a different person, because it builds on the capabilities and expands them and increases them. But oftentimes it is also fraught with a lot of heartache and pain, very seriously, for a lot of people, because 8 out of 10 ventures fail. We all know that the numbers are there, right? So it can be very tough for others. So I think, but once you're in, I think as Ecclesiastes 9:11 says, whatever thy hand findeth to do, do it with all thy might, right? So today is you have to seize the date for today and give the best you can. And that's all you can do,
Right.
right? You can't control outcomes completely. You can't manufacture luck. You can only give your very best every single day, right? And see how it turns out.
All right. So that's
That
a
would be my
profound,
advice.
yeah. So that's a profound note to end the podcast on. Thank you so much again for making
Thank you.
time and talking about your journey. This was
Thank you,
really
Roshan.
insightful. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening. If you liked this episode, then don't forget to subscribe to us on your favorite platform and share this episode with all of your fellow startup operators. Also, follow the Startup Operator on LinkedIn and Twitter for more updates. Stay safe, take care, and see you soon on a brand new episode of the Startup Operator.